Are you ready to change your life, but don't know how to start? Is your stress and worries keeping you awake at night? Have you been battling grief, anxiety, or depression all alone? Have you lost touch with your own sense of being or spirituality? Soul Free Therapies offers professional and affordable live video streaming counseling and coaching services from the comfort of your own home. Sessions offered in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. Go to our website at www.soul-free.com and book your first session today.
Is your credit in bad shape? Do you need a new car? Ready to buy a new house? You want to rent an apartment? Are you going to apply for a job? Any one of these activities, they're going to ask for a credit report and then check out your credit score. Let Dynamic Solutions 2 erase your negative credit remarks. They offer a life-changing, dynamic financial solution. The finest in fast, professional, affordable credit repair. They have affordable monthly prices. They accept Visa, MasterCard, PayPal options available. You go to www.dynamicsolutions2, that's the number 2.com, or call 424-888-2820. Now, if you enter promo code ED or you mention Ed Opperman, you get a 10% discount. How's that? You get a free consultation, all negative items removed, get back in positive credit position. Dynamic Solutions 2, life-changing dynamic financial solutions.
Hey you, podcast listener, this is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. Take the blue pill. You wake up in your bed and go back to listening to mundane podcasts that won't challenge your religious beliefs and your so-called truths about reality, the universe, and consciousness. Take the red pill. Subscribe to the Event Horizon podcast, hosted by Mark Anthony Peterson, and he will show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. Event Horizon takes a walk into the paranormal with a splash of conspiracy. It's the podcast that would be born if David Icke and the X-Files had a baby. Subscribe to the Event Horizon podcast by Mark Anthony Peterson on Spreaker, iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, CastBox, Stitcher, or any of your other favorite podcast platforms. Remember, all we are offering is the truth, nothing more.
Have you ever heard of Castile Soap? Pure Soap Flake Company handcrafts fine soap bars, laundry powder, and concentrated soap flakes using organic vegetable oils from their northern Minnesota facility. Bathe your body and wash your clothes with Pure Soap products that are free of fragrance, GMOs, palm oil, sodium lauryl sulfate, and synthetic additives. Safe for drains and waterways, and work great in high-efficiency washers and top and front-loading machines. They have a little promotion going on. Contact them to order some soap. Mention the Opperman Report. You're going to get a free gift. Order today at puresoapflakes.com or give them a call, 218-568-2525, 218-568-2525. Pure Soap Flake Company is a proud member of the Handcrafted Soap and Cosmetic Guild.
It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman, and today's show is brought to you by Matthew Winnicott and his GoFundMe page called Remicade for Cheryl. Matthew's a supporter of the show. He's a longtime listener, and he's a great friend of the show. And his girlfriend's come down with this disease, and they're trying to raise funds for her medication. It's called Remicade, and it's very expensive, about $3,000 every 2 months. Remicade for Cheryl on GoFundMe.com. Now, if this is the first time you're listening to our show, please visit OppermanReport.com. And you'll find there we have all kinds of exclusive content that you won't find either on the Friday night show or on the Saturday afternoon show. So this is exclusive content just for subscribers who become members, and it helps support the show and it helps support the free shows as well. Now, today we got a great show coming up for you. We have David and Donna Carrico, and their website is ritualabusefree.org, and their other website is fojcradio.com. They've written many, many books. They've got a whole list of books here, about 8 altogether, CDs and books. But some of the main ones are Victims to Victors, and then another one is Guide for Ministering to Masons. So we got them right now. So, Dave and Donna, are you there?
We are there, Ed.
Okay, great.
Glad to be with you.
Yeah, thank you so much. So who wants to go first? Tell us about yourselves, Dave or Donna. Who is Dave or Donna Carrico?
Well, I am David Carrico, and I came to the Lord in 1971. I was a hippie, and I had been arrested for selling drugs, and back in those days, they actually put you in jail for that. I sold marijuana to an undercover police officer, and in Indiana State Prison, I received the Lord late in 1971, and from that time, I have been serving the Lord, and we began to be involved. I married my wife, Donna, in 1980, and we began to do a ministry. We formed our ministry in 1984, and we began doing radio, and we were doing things like the Door Knocker Cults, Bible Prophecy on AM Christian radio, and that led us to discover Freemasonry. And our study in Freemasonry, I interviewed a man by the name of Tom McKinney. And Tom McKinney had just written a book called The Deadly Deception. And the things that Tom said were so revolutionary. As far as I know, this was the first time in Evansville, Indiana, that anyone had ever spoken out on Freemasonry. And when we did the broadcast with Tom, it wound up splitting one church, a very prominent Presbyterian church here in town, and it just really created a real furor in a good way for the Lord. There was one man that was a jeweler that actually took the Masonic jewelry out of his store and refused to sell it and melted it all down. But that dovetailed, as the Lord does things, with our involvement at that time, and I'll let my wife share that part of the story. But as I was discovering Freemasonry, my wife was working with a group that was an advocacy group for molested children. And this kind of dovetailed together to enable us to discover the relationship between satanic ritual abuse and Freemasonry. And I'll let my wife kind of give her testimony and how that worked.
Hi, this is Donna Carrico, and I just want to give all the glory to my Lord for saving me and rescuing me and for helping me to live my life like I have. I was raised in church, but it was mostly our babysitter because my parents didn't really give a true Christian testimony. But my childhood was filled with physical and emotional abuse, incest, rape, molestation from both sides of my family. Then I, of course, left home, married the first man that I could get away from home with, and then I had a troubled marriage of poverty, illness, but I was blessed with 2 beautiful children. And at the end of that marriage, of about 13 years, there was a short time of promiscuity and getting involved with the wrong people. And I happened to meet this girl. I was so naive. I had no idea that she was a witch. But she introduced me to one man, and then I met another one in one of the taverns I was in, and she was a witch, and they were Satanists. And of course, there was, just like I said, it was a short time of my life, and only just a few incidences. Of course, most of them I never forgot. Some I have recovered memories, but have all been substantiated, the times, places, and things that I saw. And at that point, I realized how far down I really got. God rescued me right in the midst of a ritual that was being done on me, and before it was completed, God nudged me, and I ran from that place. And then a few weeks later, my girlfriend came to me, and she said, you know, Jesus really loves you, and he's just waiting there for you. And, of course, I thought I was too bad, but I did decide to go to her church. It was a little Pentecostal church on the wrong side of town, something my parents would have always advised me against. But I went to that church, and I heard the Lord speak to me, and he said, let me help you carry your burdens. You've carried them long enough. And at that point, I did. I ran to the altar. I gave my heart to the Lord, and I just totally was different. And 2 weeks after that, I met David, who was my Sunday school teacher. And just a few weeks after that, the Lord miraculously put us together because I guess the Lord foresaw that we had work to do for him. And so we got married about 3 months after I met him. And then about 6 months or less, maybe after that, the Lord spoke to David and told him he wanted us to move. And we were just in this little small town in southern Indiana, but we knew our ministry would thrive better if we would be in a bigger town. So we got down on our knees and prayed. And when we got up, both of us knew it was Evansville, Indiana. And so we moved. I closed my beauty shop. I was a hairdresser. And we closed my beauty shop, and we moved down here, and God just blessed us. We lived in faith. And one thing after another, and then we visited different churches, and then we started doing Christian radio on AM radio, and it just kind of was like a big snowball. That's when I joined SLAM, Society's League Against Molestation, for my own healing. And then there was little children coming to this friend of ours, Rick Doniger. He was the youth pastor of the church we were attending at that time. And when they started alleging that their perpetrators were a Freemason teacher and a Shriner principal, we thought these guys were supposed to be the good old boys. Why would they be connected with satanic ritual abuse? The children were claiming they were taken from their schools, taken to a blue house here in Evansville, satanically ritually abused, and then taken back. Well, they were recovering their memories and telling them to Rick because they'd tried to get justice here and couldn't get it. So in the wrap-up, Current Affair came down and did this video that was the most accurate video that we had. And it was just a big media thing here, and we got blasted so bad because people thought we were crazy. And like I said, it was like a big snowball. About the same time, we were interviewing these people on the radio, and Tom McKinney opened our eyes about Freemasonry, and we began to research. And that was about 1989 that we started this research, and we were writing books and listening to the children and all this all at once. And so it was just really just exciting but sad when we'd hear all these children. But we began to put it all together as we were writing and researching, and that's why we wrote the book, The Egyptian Masonic Satanic Connection, to prove the connections between the occult background of Freemasonry and how they could be involved with children that are abused. And so, David, you can take it from here.
Well, just a second. I got to tell you guys, we have so much in common. You would not believe it. Okay. Oh. Yeah. First of all, I was a yippie in New York City. I have a background in marijuana myself. I was saved in a Pentecostal church, Assemblies of God church, on my birthday. Okay. And the girl who brought me there was a hairdresser.
Wow.
All right.
Well, I don't believe in coincidences. That's just fantastic.
Maybe we're twins. Okay, but Donna, you were saying that there were some instances where you were subjected to some kind. Can you describe that?
Yes, I don't know how graphic.
No, don't get too graphic, but whatever you're comfortable with.
Okay, all right. Well, just right before I got saved, there was this man I met, and I was taken to his house. And I must admit, I was pretty inebriated, but not as drunk as he thought I was. But I went there once, and stupidly, nothing really happened except just talking and things. And then the second time I went, I was looking around. He was telling me he didn't need a telephone because he talked to his friends telepathically, which, to me, that wasn't really weird. I was kind of into some of that kind of stuff. And then there was this book laying over here on the table. I'll never forget. It was a black, probably vinyl, but it looked like a leather-bound book. And I picked it up, and he said, "You can't read that." And I said, "Why not?" And he said, "Because it's written in a secret language, and you got to read it backwards." And I said, "Oh." And but he never went into details. But I realize now, after all the investigation and research we've done, that was his book of shadows. That was his spells. I didn't know that. Like I said, I was naive. And then one thing led to another. Of course, it became sexual. And during this process, there was a picture on his wall that was like a Artex painting, a black velvet. You see these kind of on corners, not like this one, of course, but an example would be like you see them on the corners, people trying to sell them, hanging up these tapestry type things. But it was black velvet, and when you looked at it, it looked like the signs of the zodiac. But when he turned his black light on, because of course that was popular back then, when he had the black light turned on, it was the face of the devil. Mm. It was the exact replica of what is on the Satanic Bible. And I didn't exactly know what that was. I knew it looked evil, but I still didn't connect it all because I was so naive. And then there was the sexual thing that began, and before it was ever consummated, at the end he was saying, think of me as a goat with horned ears and chin whiskers and a forked tail. And about that time, I thought, oh, I'm out of here. I ran out of that place. And then it was shortly after that, the church where I got saved at, this man showed up at that church wearing a brown bathrobe, speaking in demonic tongues, walking up and down the aisle, and David was the deacon there. And he had to escort him out when the police came and got him. Well, they put him away in a mental institution, but yet they let him out a couple of weeks later. And some boys from the church decided to pull a prank. And they went down and knocked on the door, and they said, "This the police, open up." Well, he opened up. He killed one of them. Mm. And I was just devastated, of course, thinking that it was my fault. But I found out later he had gone to other churches as well. But it was such a shock. And all this, as it unfolds, I think now, how could any of this possibly happen to me? But it did. And David was there. He saw the guy. And also, they put him in the mental institution in a northern part of Indiana, and then later they let him out, and he ended up in Evansville. About the same time that we were dealing with the Blue House kids, and you got to understand, this was about 10 years later. And all of a sudden, one day I was on the same side of town. He was 4 blocks from this Blue House. I saw him, and I could not believe it. I came home and told David, I said, "You're not going to believe who I saw today." But he was a Satanist. And see, that's where the kids said they were taken, so it all fit. But it was just still hard to comprehend. And then on the other Satanist, I had memories of candles, Baphomet, a knife being waved over me. And I'll admit, I don't have all the details of that. But what I have learned, I've documented. And he took me to a ritual site, blindfolded, on horseback. And I had told David about going to that site, but when I told him it was a long way around through what we would call Bus Road Bottoms. And during the same time when we were interviewing people for our radio program, David interviewed the sheriff of the county where I was raised. Well, we were always very careful because by then we have learned the proper technique of talking to children or survivors. You don't ask leading questions. You just got to be careful. If you want anything to be prosecuted, you just cannot, give too much information. You have to be careful. And so when the sheriff had taken my husband to the ritual site, he took him the front way. Well, David never told me where those sites were. And so here I am having a memory telling how to get to the same place, only I told the back way, not the front way. So that helps to substantiate what was done to me, proof that it was the same place, and we found out two different ways. So, and like I said, it was a very short time, a period in my life, and I just praise God for getting me out of that. But it was real.
And how old were you? How old were you when that was going on?
Oh, I was probably about 28.
Okay.
I mean, been a married woman, and I should have known better. But you know the old song, "Looking for love in all the wrong places."
Yeah.
That wasn't me. I hadn't ever had a normal life, and I was looking for somebody to love me. But I only found that through the Lord, and then, of course, my husband David.
Now, with the Blue House case, either one of you can answer this. With the Blue House case, was there ever any arrests made in that? And what is this? Give us the details on the Blue House case.
Well, there never were any arrests, and I'm getting a lot of echo here. I don't know if they can help with that, anything on their end, but there were 12 children that came forward and alleged that they had been taken from the school facilities to a Blue House. They were examined by 6 of the children were examined by Sue Donaldson, who is professor of psychology at the University of Southern Indiana. She verified on national television that the 6 children that she examined were all marked in an identical way on their arms, and with like a cutting mark, like you'd been cut with a razor. And in satanic cults, this serves various purposes. Part of it is branding, like for identification, and also Aleister Crowley in his cult, when anyone would use the word "I," he would make them cut themselves on the arm with a razor very similar to this, because the idea was to break down the individuality of the person and force them into the hive cult where they could be controlled. It was just mind control. And the former prosecutor of Evansville, Indiana, Bill Welburn, he took the cases of the children pro bono. All of these children were from poor families. He pushed for prosecution. There was a lot of local publicity about it. The Chicago Tribune did an article, and the Current Affair from Fox, they come down and did a segment on it. And back in those days, if it was like now with the Internet, the lid would have totally blown off of the thing. But they were able to contain it, because back then the Internet wasn't there to spread the word like it is now. But the unbelievable possibilities of it being a coincidence, and these children did not know one another. The families did not know one another, and they were all telling the same story about being taken to this Blue House. And as we begin to see the police investigation, it became obvious to us that the police didn't really want to catch anybody. And the prosecutor of Evansville, Indiana, who was at that time Stan Levko, he in fact said as much, that he wasn't going to prosecute. He just didn't believe it, despite the fact that there was tremendous, overwhelming evidence to show that a crime had taken place. And we begin to just really wonder if all of Evansville were Satanists or what was going on, and then we begin to connect a few dots. And the investigators on the case were Freemasons, and the accused perpetrators that the children were alleging that were involved in this, they were Freemasons. So we've got Freemasons investigating Freemasons. So we begin to think, well, could this possibly be a connection? that this might be related to it. And it was because, and also then it was providential of the Lord that I had just done this interview with Tom McKinney, and he just absolutely blew my mind, and I began to research Freemasonry to where we begin to seriously connect the dots between Freemasonry and satanic ritual abuse.
Now, in this blue house, do you know who lived there? This is like a home?
Yes, and they claimed that someone was living there, but at the time we believed they were living somewhere else. This is subject to controversy. The family later sued Current Affair, but they dropped the lawsuit. And it was rumored. The rumor was that back in the 70s that this had been a bordello. So it had been a house with some history there in Evansville. And we believe, it's our belief, and we can just say, can't really say for all reasons why, that there wasn't anybody in the house at the time. And I believe that it was being used for these purposes.
Well, it should be pretty easy to find the ownership of the house. Do we know where the owners of the house are today?
It has now been bulldozed down.
Amazing. Yeah, and, that's so common in these cases.
Bulldozed.
Yeah.
We did know who the people were at the time. And I actually did. In our investigation, what we could do, we couldn't get good investigation. We did have a detective and a sergeant and another man that was trying to help, but we just weren't making any progress there. But one night, as we were watching the Blue House, I saw this woman that was connected with us. The children alleged that there was a woman also involved. And I saw her taking about 1:45 midnight. She was taking big, long robes, some kind of garment, and had them draped over her arm and was putting them in her trunk. So I saw that with my own eyes. And there were other things we did. I mean,
yeah. And the police investigators told me and Rick Doniger that if we saw anything, to call them and they would be right there. And back in those days, I thought I was MacGyver. And Rick and I were actually laying in the field across from the house. And Donna drove by and she saw him. We saw him taking stuff out of there. And this is already after we had been pressing for them to get a search warrant, and that the mothers of these children, they were screaming, get a search warrant, search that house. And I personally called the Evansville police. That night, the specific investigator that told me to call, I went back and I waited and nobody came. And I just had a terrible feeling, that they're not going to really catch anybody here because they don't really want to. And there were people that were shutting this down, and it just reeked of cover-up. It reeked of corruption. And over against the obvious testimony that something horrific had happened, it wasn't going to be seriously investigated. And I believe that absolutely Freemasonry was at the root of coordinating this cover-up.
Isn't it amazing in these cases how many times the scene of the crime gets bulldozed? Ariel Castro, the McMartin preschool, they destroy the scene of the crime almost every time.
Well, the same happened with the house of this other fellow whose name was David Graham in Sullivan, Indiana. They bulldozed his house, and the FBI came in for a period of about 2 weeks, and they were digging up the backyard, and they bagged so many animal bones, it looked like a zoo of the animals that had been killed, but they suspected him of possibly being involved with murders in other states. They never proved any connections into murders, but
that was one of them that abused me.
It is just an amazing, and like I say, I don't believe in coincidences that these places are just bulldozed. And a lot of this, for a lot of years, came right out of Quantico when Ken Lanning was in the FBI. Ken Lanning basically took the position that satanic crime and satanic ritual abuse did not exist. And at the federal level, they did everything they could to quash this. And then again, you just have to ask yourself why. And I think the possibilities of why, there's several possibilities, and none of them are good. None of them are good.
Yeah, it seems like you said, the Freemasons they have this brotherhood. It's a fraternity and a lot of secrecy. Okay, this might be a good time to take a little commercial break. Now, David, about the echo that you're hearing, I'm not hearing it, and as long as in my headphones, everything sounds really good in my headphones. So, can you deal with?
Well, it's a little better. I'm just getting a little bit sometimes, so it's not real disturbing now. So we're good to go. Okay, great. So we'll take a little commercial break. We'll be right back with more of David and Donna Carrico. Their website is ritualabusefree.org. Some of their top books that they like to promote is Victims to Victors, a guide for ministering to Freemasons, and that's about it, I guess, right? And the other website is FOJCradio.com. Okay, and when is your radio show? Every night, or when do you do a radio show? How often?
We have 24-hour auto DJ, and we have archives, and every Sunday morning at 9 Central, we do a live broadcast. And
actually, we have written 19 books together, and they're various sizes, but the ones we gave you a list of are the biggest ones. And then I've written 2 by myself, so I don't have anything in the works right now, but I have a couple that I was going to write. I haven't got them done yet.
Yeah, that's great, because I got a couple of books in me, too, but it's just how you can't find the time, these days.
There you go.
But all the books are available on ritualabusefree.org. You can order them directly. We'll be right back after these messages with more of David and Donna Carrico. And now a word from our sponsors.
Have you ever thought about opening your own mobile cart or kiosk business? Maybe the facility you manage could establish new revenue by adding coffee, food, or retail services. Cart King International can be the answer to your needs. Cart King is a North American designer and manufacturer of the finest mobile coffee, food, and retail carts and kiosks. Cart King has been working with clients and corporations across North America for 20 years, providing innovative designs, custom manufacturing, and timely delivery. Carts and kiosks are fun, and so are the dozens of designs on our website. Please visit us today at www.cart-king.com or just call us at 1-877-986-7771 and get your sales rolling.
PureSoapFlakes.com, 218-568-2525. Have you ever heard of Castile Soap? Pure Soap Flake Company handcrafts fine soap bars, laundry powder, and concentrated soap flakes using organic vegetable oils from their northern Minnesota facility. Bathe your body and wash your clothes with Pure Soap products that are free of fragrance, GMOs, palm oil, sodium lauryl sulfate, and synthetic additives. Keep it clean, folks. Pure Soap Flake Company products are kind to living creatures and sensitive skin, safe for drains and waterways, and work great in high-efficiency washers and top and front-loading machines. They have a little promotion going on. Contact them to order some soap. Mention the Opperman Report. You're going to get a free gift. They're going to send a little extra soap, travel size, soap bars and laundry soap, cleaning soap flakes. I've been using that stuff all day long today. Great stuff. Order today at puresoapflakes.com or give them a call, 218-568-2525, 218-568-2525. Pure Soap Flake Company is a proud member of the Handcrafted Soap and Cosmetic Guild.
Tina Helmuth is writing an ongoing series of fact-fiction books that boldly takes on today's most heinous crimes, the abduction, sexual trafficking, and cannibalization of our children. Suffer the Little Children, The Wrath of the Father, and Unbreakable. Deeply researched and mixed with the supernatural, good versus evil makes these thrillers hard to put down, shining a light on the root cause of these crimes and introducing a spiritual solution. Justice will be served. Available at lulu.com in paperback or ebook.
Hey, check out our brand new sponsor, Dynamic Solutions 2. That's the number 2. They offer a life-changing, dynamic financial solution. The finest in fast, professional, affordable credit repair. Is your credit in bad shape? Do you need a new car? Ready to buy a new house? Do you want to rent an apartment? Are you going to apply for a job? Any one of these activities, they're going to ask for a credit report and then check out your credit score. Let Dynamic Solutions 2 erase your negative credit remarks. They have affordable monthly prices. They accept Visa, MasterCard, PayPal options available. You go to www.dynamicsolutions, that's the number 2.com, or call 424-888-2820. 424-888-2820. Now, if you enter promo code ED or you mention Ed Opperman, you get a 10% discount. How's that? You get a free consultation, all negative items removed, get back in positive credit position. Dynamic Solutions 2, life-changing dynamic financial solutions. 424-888-2820. Tell them Ed Opperman sent you. You get a 10% discount.
It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Basically, all you need to know as a child of God or as a leader in a Christian assembly are two things, that Freemasonry worships another god. Every time they open or close a lodge, they pray to the Gayatu, which is an acronym for the Grand Architect of the Universe. This is not the God of the Bible, but it is the God that accepts all Freemasons and offers them salvation on the basis of the Masonic works. Number one, Freemasonry worships another god. Number two, Freemasonry preaches another gospel. Just as assuredly as the Jehovah's Witnesses or Mormonism preaches another gospel, they do also. In the third degree and the Master Mason degree, every Freemason plays the part of Hiram Abiff, which is actually the god of the mysteries, the dying god. Adonis, Tammuz, Osiris, or by whatever name he was known by in the mystery religions. And they are tapped on the head with a setting maul, and they fall back, and they're caught in a canvas, and sometimes in your more sophisticated lodges and in Europe, they'll actually put the candidate in a coffin or sometimes in a pit, and then the worshipful master raises them up with the strong grip of the lion paw, and he whispers the secret word in their ear, which is Mahabun. And then the language in the monitor of any state monitor you would find would read something like this, that you have been raised from the depths of sepulcher of sin and redeemed and brought into the glorious light. It's clearly the language of salvation. And many times I have heard from Freemasons that I have dealt with, they have a cliche that the lodge is all the church that I need. And it's just as ridiculous for a church to say, well, we're going to have to study whether Freemasonry is wrong or not, as to say, well, we're going to have to study to see if homosexuality is right or not. It is ungodly, and it's idolatry. And this shows, right now, the statistic is that 60% of professed Christians in America no longer believe that Jesus is the only way of salvation. And in this atmosphere, Freemasonry is ripe to take hold, because this is the message of Freemasonry, that there are many ways to God. And, of course, the Christian gospel says there is only one way. So it would be as ridiculous to give the right hand of fellowship to a Freemason as it would be to a Hindu or to a Buddhist, because they are openly partakers of worshiping other gods. Now, it is also true that genuine Christians can get involved in Freemasonry because it is often the pastors and the deacons that actually get the men involved. So with good intentions, they join Freemasonry, and we have talked with many, many, many men that have undergone Masonic initiation and later repented and come out of the lodge, and each and every one of them that was a child of God when they went through Masonic initiation, every one of them said that the Holy Spirit convicted their heart, and they knew it was wrong. They didn't know what all was wrong about it, but they knew it was wrong. And the last time that the church, and when you look at our nation today, we've got serious, real problems spiritually. with our nation and the things that it's done, the same-sex marriage and abortion and the Planned Parenthood and so many things that are just openly ungodly. And the church has been seemingly, well, not seemingly, it has been powerless to avert any of this. And the last time we had a real revival in America, there was a man by the name of Charles Finney, and this was called the Second Great Awakening, and it took place, broke out in the 1830s, the latter half of the 1820s and into the 1830s. And Charles Finney was himself a Freemason. And in his book, the character and the practical claims of Freemasonry, and so this is what people today that want to talk about revival, they don't want to talk about this. But Charles Finney specifically credited the revival in the Second Great Awakening to the fact that the church repented of Freemasonry. And the churches, and he says that the Baptist churches took the lead, and they took a stand, and they told the Freemasons to make a choice. You either choose the church or you choose the lodge. And if you choose the lodge, you're not going to be a part of the church. And any sane Christian leader would want a homosexual or a Freemason or anybody to come in and hear the gospel. But when we go across the line and we join hands and say, yes, you're right with God, and, welcome, my brother, when we give those people the right hand of fellowship in their perpetually sinful condition, we don't help them. We just reinforce their road to hell. And this is where the church today has become powerless. And I was naive. I thought, my goodness, when these churches find out all this evil's going on, they'll want to declare war. But what I found out was just the opposite. They didn't want to declare war. They wanted to let things go on just like they are, because we begin to find out that Freemasonry exerts tremendous influence financially in many congregations. And what they will do, we also found out, at denominational levels, they will give big offerings. Like they give over $250,000 to Baylor University to establish the chair of the separation of church and state. And they also, we were involved with the church in the General Baptist denomination, where at the church, in their college in Nashville, that the Freemasons made a donation there. And, of course, when you take money from them, you can't turn around and speak out against them. So these are the games that they play, and it's all for the purpose of covering up the truth. But the truth is, until the church really wants to repent, and we're just talking about paganism and idolatry, and until the church comes to the place where it wants to repent and really repent, like Charles Finney, and take a stand against this evil, things are not going to change.
But now, what about also when you try and go into a church and talk to them about satanic ritual abuse? Even that will get you one of those stares, like you walk into church naked or something. you went in there in a costume. You know what I'm saying? Like that should be a no-brainer.
Yeah, and the same is true there, Ed. I mean, there is not just a lack of knowledge, but there's a lack of concern.
Yeah.
And, Ed, we spoke to many pastors and tried to get help for our survivors that we were ministering to. And so many times we would take them to a church, and we had already done deliverance ministry with them, and they were set free, but they needed acceptance, and they needed brothers and sisters in Christ to be praying for them. So we would take them there, and they would go up to the altar for simple prayer. Well, before you know it, somebody in the church was laying hands on them, trying to cast out devils. And a lot of these people had multiple personalities. Well, you can't cast out a personality. What you do when you do that wrong way of praying for them, you mess up their system, and it causes a lot of confusion. So many times we would take these people here and try to get acceptance for them, and they were never trusted usually. Whenever they go to the altar, like I said, The other people would think they got devils. Anything that happens in the church, they would blame it on these poor little survivors that are trying to get help and loving the Lord and start a new life. And we got so tired of that. That's another reason why we ended up having home church. We wanted to protect them. We knew if we had them in our home that they wouldn't get hurt like they did out in the church.
And another thing we've seen also, and we've seen it, and I'm not denigrating Pentecostals. I'm Pentecostal to the bone. I believe in the gifts of Spirit. Anyone that's heard me preach very much, they know I do. But right here in Evansville, Indiana, in it was an Assembly of God, an AG church, there were people in the prayer line that were Freemasons that had, and it was easy to tell, they had the belt buckles with the big letter G on it. Now, when you have a victim that has been ritually victimized in a satanic and a Masonic context, this just absolutely, I mean, it just scares them to death.
And another thing that churches do is they will put a person in the middle of a circle to do prayer on them. That is a ritual. That's the point within the circle in Freemasonry that represents a man and a woman having sex. This is so evil, and they don't know they're doing it. It's just a custom. It's a custom the churches do. We don't lay hands on people unless we ask permission first, because people that have been abused, like me, I don't like to be touched. When I was first getting well, coming out of this, when people would try to lay hands on me, I just wanted to turn around and smack them, even if they did mean well. But I have a right now to protect my space. I have a right to protect my body. I don't have to have anybody laying hands on me, even if it's a Christian, unless I give them permission. There are boundaries. And whenever a survivor can start recognizing that she has boundaries, that's a sign of healing, not a sign that she's crazy. It's a sign that she recognizes that she has a choice now.
It's interesting, just to interject for a second, is that it seems like it's the leadership of the church that wants to reject this, because the average person, when you get them alone, average Christian, they all intuitively sense this, that there's some kind of broad-scale evil going on.
David did a teaching on this just a few weeks ago. He called it the hive mentality.
Right.
Yeah, and this is so true. I mean, and I have had many pastors that I have sit down with, and I've shown them I can take the Indiana monitor, and in 90 seconds is all it takes. I can sit down with someone with an Indiana Masonic monitor, and in 90 seconds I can show them that Freemasonry worships another God and preaches another gospel. And I have had so many pastors say, yes, you're right, it's bad, but they won't take a stand in their own church, and they won't take a stand in the pulpit. And for a long time, we have taken the biblical position in the Word of God in 1 Corinthians chapter 5 and verse 11. The Apostle Paul said, "But now I have written unto you not to keep company if any man that is called a brother be a fornicator or covetous or an idolater or a railer or a drunkard or an extortioner, with such a one know not to eat." And if I am in an assembly and that pastor accepts Freemasons in the congregation, I am obligated to go to him and to tell him the facts about Freemasonry, which I would offer to do with anybody that would like me to go with them, that it's possible in my capacity in an area to do. I am more than willing to do that. And then if that pastor will not do the right thing, the people are obligated to get out. And it has been our position for a long time that we will not fellowship or give the right hand of fellowship to anybody of believers that will accept Freemasons in any capacity. And that pretty much puts you out, and in the same way, if a survivor does not trust the church. And I don't blame them. I don't trust them either, because men and women of God should stand up for the truth without compromise or equivocation. If it's evil, we must stand against it, and if it's true, we must be for it. And it is this compromise that has its basis in the love of money that causes Freemasonry to have this sway in American Christianity. And until that is broken, things are not going to change, because it is this spirit of compromise that enables the evil one to continue to perpetuate the horrific things he does in the darkness and the things that he's doing now right in front of everybody in our nation.
And I just wanted to interject here, too, something I left out in my testimony that's very important here that's on the subject. I told you I spent a very short time out in the world being promiscuous. But before that, I was a wife and a mother, and I had a business, and I was a very functional person. And I was raised to believe in God by the church, but not really a personal experience. I didn't know what salvation really was. But all the times that I was out in the taverns drinking, I would come home and I had a Bible laying beside my bed, and I was drawn to that Bible, and I would read and trying to find the truth. And then after I did finally make that choice to get out of that lifestyle and try to change, I went to 4 different churches in my area, and none of them treated me nice. And none of them did I ever really hear about the love and the mercy and the forgiveness of God. And I was so upset because I wanted to raise my children right, whether I was right or not. I was seeking. I wanted to do good. I wanted to be a Christian, but I wasn't told how to be a Christian, really. Now, these were different denominations, but they were all around my hometown. So instead of looking at me as a person that was lost, that needed help, that needed the Lord, they treated me like I was a tramp, which technically I was, but I was trying to be good. And so when my friends came to me and said, Jesus is waiting for you, I thought, okay, I'll give it one more try. Well, when I went to that little church, God personally spoke to me. And it wasn't necessarily, the church was very loving and kind. And yes, they accepted me, they loved me, and they helped me. No, they were not perfect in all of their doctrines. But yes, that's where God wanted me to meet David. So, churches ain't all bad, but they need so much improvement. And like David's saying, they're so apostate nowadays, they don't even know. You ask the average person, what is the doctrine of Christ? They can't even tell you. We know, because that's one of the questions we've been asking people a lot lately. They have no idea what the doctrine of Christ is, and that's what they're supposed to be teaching. And that's what we try to do, is teach the doctrine of Christ for the whole world.
Let me ask you a question. Now, one of the things here is what is the connection between Freemasonry and satanic ritual abuse? Like, what is the history behind it?
Well, the father of modern Satanism, Aleister Crowley, was also a Freemason.
Okay.
And there's a quote by Anton Sandor LaVey that we often use, who was the head of the Church of Satan. He said that, in so many words, that if you study any serious occult order, it'll take you right back to the lodge. And Aleister Crowley, we've got a quote here in our book from his autobiography. He said, in regard to his involvement in Freemasonry, he said, I am supposed to know more secret signs, tokens, passwords, grand words, grips, and so on than I could actually learn in a dozen lives. An elephant would break down under the insignia I am entitled to wear. And Mr. Crowley was not just a nominal Mason. He was a 33rd degree Scottish Rite Mason. He held degree of 97th degree in the Rite of Misery in Memphis, which is a European Masonic degree. And while Mr. Crowley was being heaped with honors by Freemasonry all over the world and speaking in Masonic lodges halls globally, he was writing the books on ritual blood satanic sacrifice. In his book, Magic in Theory and Practice, he was very explicit. He said a male child of perfect innocence and high intelligence is the most satisfactory and suitable victim. So if that's all you would know, right there you would know that there is a serious connection between Freemasonry and Satanism. And beyond that, the concept is the lodge within a lodge. There were two other secret societies that Aleister Crowley was involved in. One was called the Golden Dawn, and the other was called the Ordo Templar Orientis. And there were others, the Astrum Argentinum, but the two major ones would be the Golden Dawn and the Ordo Templar Orientis. Both were, and the Golden Dawn started in a lodge hall in London, England, and the Ordo Templar Orientis, Mr. Crowley tells, or I don't want to call him Mr. Crowley, I don't want to give him that respect, but Crowley, he tells in his autobiography, The Confessions of Aleister Crowley, how Theodore Roos recruited him out of Freemasonry into the OTO. And these groups recruit out of the lodge, and they often will meet in the lodge. The Golden Dawn started in a Masonic lodge in London, England. And the way they will do, like if I was a member of the OTO, I could go to a lodge hall here in Evansville, and I could feel people out, and I could recruit people from Freemasonry into my inner circle. And so what if somebody there hears something that they don't think is right or proper? Everybody that goes through the doors, you swear a death oath not to say what goes on while you're in there. So it's a perfect avenue for secrecy. And let's say that I'm a Satanist and I am in a Masonic lodge. If I'm just one of the officers or have access from the officers to where I can use the lodge on an off night, there you go. You've got the perfect place where you can propagate whatever you want to do, whether it's drug running or whether it's selling drugs or guns or whatever. It's a lot better to do the deal somewhere where you're protected by secrecy, and you're even a lot of times the police and the judge are there, and they're a part of the lodge. So it's a perfect environment, and this has been done for a long time. And if you look at, let's just say witchcraft, and let's just take Mr. LeVay's statement that if you would study any serious occult order, you'll go right back to the lodge. In witchcraft, the major figures in the 20th century witchcraft revival, it was George Pickingill of Freemasonry really kicked it off in England. He's a lesser-known figure. He was a Freemason. It was picked up by Gerald Gardner, who is the head of what's called Gardenian witchcraft, named after him. He was a Freemason. Alex Saunders, who is of the school of what's called Alexandrian witchcraft, also a Freemason. And in the third degree of witchcraft, there are so many similarities with the third degree of Freemasonry. We actually did, with a friend of ours, still a good friend, Bill Schneblin, and at one of our conferences in Indianapolis, Indiana, we did a reenactment of the third degree of Freemasonry. And while this was being, and people dressed up in tuxedos and made it look just like it would look in a lodge hall, and while this was being done, Bill drawed similarities in each and every step to the initiation into witchcraft. And the reason why, the guys that wrote the witchcraft ritual was Freemasons. So you can go on and on and on. Every member of the Theosophical Society, Freemasons, Golden Dawn, OTO, on down the line. So the coordinating factor is something that we found out, and we began to become aware of this in Evansville, Indiana, that people have a tremendous reach because you don't need everybody to be evil. And a lot of times, let's just say if I need something to disappear in a hospital record, all I got to do is call a lodge friend. He'll make it disappear. He doesn't even know why it disappears. And this is the type of thing that gives Freemasonry its ability to do what it is and why it is such a horrifically evil system. Not all Freemasons are evil, and not all Freemasons are Satanists, but Freemasonry is a organization that deceives good men, and it propagates horrific evil.
Ed, I'd like to put a quote in here from Albert Pike, who wrote Morals and Dogma. It's on page 103 of our book. Quote, secrecy is indispensable in a Mason of whatever degree. It is the first and almost only lesson taught to the entered apprentice. The obligations which we have assumed toward every Mason that lives, requiring of us the performance of the most serious and onerous duties toward those personally unknown to us until they demand our aid, duties that must be performed, even at the risk of life or our solemn oath be broken and violated, and we branded as false Masons and faithless men. And then finishing another quote here. Upon entering the order, the initiate binds himself to every Mason in the world once enrolled among the children of light. Every Mason on earth becomes his brother and owes him the duties and kindness and the sympathies of a brother, unquote. Now think about that. That means that they join themselves to every Mason, past, present, and future in the world, including people like Crowley and these other men like Gardner, Sanders, Westcott, McGraw, all these other people that started these occult groups. Whenever a man joins in the very first 3 degrees, the entered apprentice degrees, and that's what makes them a master Mason, they swear in an oath that they'll protect every other Mason in the world.
Very interesting. And Pike is the only Confederate soldier that they have a statue of in Washington, D.C. And right. if you go inside the Washington Monument, there's a bunch of tiles in there of every single Masonic lodge, I think, in the country at least.
Yeah.
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 Okay, let's take a little commercial break here, and we'll be back with David and Donna Carrico. Their website is ritualabusefree.org. They got a Sunday morning radio show at 9 a.m. Central Time at fojcradio.com. We'll be right back after these messages. And now a word from our sponsors. Emailrevealer.com. People ask me all the time, hey, Ed, are you still a private investigator? I sure am. Go to emailrevealer.com. We handle adoption investigations, infidelity investigations, where you give us your spouse's email address. We trace it back to online dating websites, catch them cheating online, email tracing, locate or identify somebody from as little as an anonymous email address. Someone owe you money? Back child support? We can find that deadbeat, locate his hidden assets, locate his hidden bank accounts, find his current place of employment, and even assist you in obtaining a judgment and recover that judgment for you. Emailrevealer.com, digital forensics, computer forensics, cell phone forensics, recover deleted text messages, create a report that you can use in court. Emailrevealer.com, 800-572-9762.
Have you ever thought about opening your own mobile cart or kiosk business? Maybe the facility you manage could establish new revenue by adding coffee, food, or retail services. Cart King International can be the answer to your needs. Cart King is a North American designer and manufacturer of the finest mobile coffee, food, and retail carts and kiosks. Cart King has been working with clients and corporations across North America for 20 years, providing innovative designs, custom manufacturing, and timely delivery. Carts and kiosks are fun, and so are the dozens of designs on our website. Please visit us today at www.cart-king.com or just call us at 1-877-986-7771 and get your sales rolling.
Have you ever heard of Castile Soap? Pure Soap Flake Company handcrafts fine soap bars, laundry powder, and concentrated soap flakes using organic vegetable oils from their northern Minnesota facility. Bathe your body and wash your clothes with pure soap products that are free of fragrance, GMOs, palm oil, sodium lauryl sulfate, and synthetic additives. Safe for drains and waterways, and work great in high-efficiency washers and top and front-loading machines. They have a little promotion going on. Contact them to order some soap. Mention the Opperman Report. You're going to get a free gift. Order today at puresoapflakes.com or give them a call, 218-568-2525, 218-568-2525. Pure Soap Flake Company is a proud member of the Handcrafted Soap and Cosmetic Guild.
Are you ready to change your life, but don't know how to start? Is your stress and worries keeping you awake at night? Have you been battling grief, anxiety, or depression all alone? Have you lost touch with your own sense of being or spirituality? Soul Free Therapies offers professional and affordable live video streaming counseling and coaching services from the comfort of your own home. Sessions offered in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. Go to our website at www.soul-free.com and book your first session today.
Is your credit in bad shape? Do you need a new car? Ready to buy a new house? Do you want to rent an apartment? Are you going to apply for a job? Any one of these activities, they're going to ask for a credit report, and they're going to check out your credit score. Let Dynamic Solutions 2 erase your negative credit remarks. They offer a life-changing, dynamic financial solution. The finest in fast, professional, affordable credit repair. They have affordable monthly prices. They accept Visa, MasterCard, PayPal options available. You go to www.dynamicsolutions2, that's the number 2.com, or call 424-888-2820. Now, if you enter promo code ED or you mention Ed Opperman, you get a 10% discount. How's that? You get a free consultation, all negative items removed, get back in positive credit position. Dynamic Solutions 2, life-changing dynamic financial solutions.
Hey you, podcast listener, this is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. Take the blue pill. You wake up in your bed and go back to listening to mundane podcasts that won't challenge your religious beliefs and your so-called truths about reality, the universe, and consciousness. Take the red pill. Subscribe to the Event Horizon podcast, hosted by Mark Anthony Peterson, and he will show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. Event Horizon takes a walk into the paranormal with a splash of conspiracy. It's the podcast that would be born if David Icke and the X-Files had a baby. Subscribe to the Event Horizon podcast by Mark Anthony Peterson on Spreaker, iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, CastBox, Stitcher, or any of your other favorite podcast platforms. Remember, all we are offering is the truth, nothing more.